because never in your life are you going to enter the game and think, shit, I'm going to, eye-gouge someone. You just overstep the mark through too much build-up. You want to make too big of an impact too soon. These things happen. So obviously, I hope that doesn't detract from the fact that it was one of the best test matches ever.
House of Rugby Ireland, here on Joe, together with Guinness. Game changed.
Hello and welcome to House of Rugby Ireland, here on Joe, together with Guinness. I'm Eimear and I am joined, as always, by Ian Madigan, Ireland and Ulster out half. Ian, this is episode 8 of our season so far this year. We've had 12 episodes in total, including our bonus episode. We've had some amazing guests on the show, the likes of Nigel Owens, Hugo Monye, Brian O'Driscoll, Sean Cronin, Senina Obu, Shane Williams, Mike Brown, CJ Stander. You had Jordy Murphy on last week with Freddie Burns, and last week we had Dan Leo on as well, the former Samoan international. What a guy he was. Some lineup of names there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been really enjoyable. I think probably the biggest telling of that is how quickly it's gone by. Like literally they've flown by, which is always a good sign that you're enjoying the process of it. So thanks to all the listeners who've been listening in and for all the kind words and support that we've got. And we hope that you enjoy the show and we'll continue to enjoy it going forward.
Absolutely, and if you did happen to miss any of those amazing guests, it's worth checking it out on the House of Rugby podcast. It's up on YouTube and on the podcast systems as well. So this week we are going to be joined by Springbok legend, Alliance Test Series and World Cup winner and former World Rugby Player of the Year, Schalk Burger. So we're really looking forward to talking to him later on in the show. However, first up we'll chat about the Autumn Nation. So it has come to an end and Ireland played Scotland at the weekend, and I suppose we can take some positives out of that game and out of that win, Ian.
Yeah, certainly. The game started off, it was challenging enough. Scotland had loads of momentum at the start, but Ireland hung in there and were only, I think, 6 points down, and it could easily have been 15 or 20 if Ireland had lost their head. There was a lot of pressure on them going into the game. Obviously, the second half of the Georgian game was disappointing. Came off the back of a loss against England, and there was a lot of expectation that Ireland had to go out and win well. And to go behind early definitely put pressure on them, but they didn't lose their heads. And, we've been talking a lot about what they've been doing in training that hasn't quite clicked in games. But I think we can take huge confidence from the last 50 minutes of the game. And looking forward to the Six Nations, you definitely think that that's, something that they can really build on going into that first game in Cardiff against Wales.
Absolutely. We have to be positive and look at what they did well. However, they started pretty slowly, and we have to face it that they've had a pretty good record against Scotland in the last few years. I think in the last 5 games, they've got 5 wins out of 5 against Scotland. Eddie O'Sullivan slated Scotland, saying that they were almost, more, they shouldn't be as positive as they are, and that Scotland actually aren't as good as they think they are. So was that win, are we giving Ireland more praise than we should be, considering they're playing against a Scottish team that probably aren't as strong as we think they are?
Yeah, I think playing at home, we'll back ourselves against anyone. And, Scotland aren't at the top table with the likes of France, England, even New Zealand, South Africa, Australia, Argentina. They're probably the second tier down from that. But they're a very competitive side. They beat Wales away recently, which was a really good result. They beat France last year, which was, we've all seen how good the French are in the last 12 months. I think key guys missing for them definitely affects them. The likes of Finn Russell adds a huge amount. But they're a very well coached side and they bring great physicality. Like I guaranteed that those Irish lads were good and sore today after that game. They'd have known that they were in a real rugby match, and they ultimately pulled away in the last quarter. But that was a tight game, and I think any side that goes out and beats Scotland in an international knows all about it.
Yeah, it's never an easy win against them. You're right. I suppose one thing that we can, as a nation, take from the Autumn Nations was the amount of young, new players, new caps, guys that were given the experience to play against the likes of Georgia or against Scotland or against Italy. Games that, yes, it's an important series and it's good to get games under your belt, but it isn't at the end of the day the Guinness Six Nations. It's effectively just warm-up games, and that's one positive, is that there was a lot of really good young players making their mark and stamping their mark down on an Irish jersey.
Yeah, certainly, and it's the first time that we've seen the coach's selection over a number of weeks, and you kind of get an idea of who they really like. And the biggest tell of that is always selection. Words might be said in the media that are complimentary, but ultimately, if the guy isn't getting picked, you figure out quite quickly what the coach is actually thinking of him. And you can see there with the likes of Hugo Keenan, Caelan Doris, Bundy Aki got lots of game time. Porter again got a huge amount of game time. Three of the four of them are all younger guys: Porter, Doris, and Keenan. And you can see how much they grew throughout this series. And there's no doubt that they'll be an integral part of the Irish team going forward into the Six Nations.
And I suppose some of it is just about timing. Like, would Keenan have been in there if Larmour was fit and injury free? Would Bundy have been starting if, Ringrose had been injured up until the last game and Henshaw been injured up until the last game, and obviously Ringrose out injured as well. So we've had quite a lot of injuries, and I suppose the guys that stood up, like Hugo Keenan and like Bundy, and they've put their mark on the jersey, and I'm glad to see that they have taken the opportunity and not shied away from the challenge, really, of playing for Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely. The injuries are part of the game, and a big battle is keeping yourself fit. But when a coach is looking to pick the team, the first thing he's going to look at is who's fit and who's injured, and there's no chance that the injured guy's getting picked. And ultimately, it's about the other guys stepping up and taking their opportunity. So when the other guy gets back from his injury, that it makes a really tough decision for the coach to make to put him back into the side. And I definitely think someone like Caelan Doris has probably nailed down a spot in that back row now that you wouldn't have thought probably at the start of the season. And similar, like Hugo Keenan's been great at the back. I'm sure you've been very impressed with him over the number of games. Jacob's got his opportunity at 15 now, and it's probably going to take a few big performances from someone for them to look at something else, because he's in there now. He's got the experience. The guys are used to playing with him, around him. So no, it has been very interesting, in that sense, with selection and seeing who's really stepped up to the mark.
Yeah, I think with Jacob as well, he got quite a lot of stick that first game. Wasn't it the first game where he, had quite a few drop balls, got turned over quite a bit, knocked balls on the try and everything. But I think he's found his place in there at full back. He's grown into the position, and that's why games like these are so important, that it gives you opportunities to play at this high level, under pressure, in a high pressure situation against the best in the world. And he hadn't, I suppose, bar playing with Ulster this year in the Guinness Pro 14, he hadn't actually quite a lot of experience playing at 15. So that experience that he got throughout the Autumn Nations is invaluable to him and so many other guys on the field. Like you said, Caelan Doris, was it 2 man of the match performances he got throughout this Autumn Nations? Maybe 3, I'm not sure exactly. But someone of his age to stand up to that, it's phenomenal what he's doing and what he has done in the last few weeks. And to start in a competitive back row with the likes of Peter Mahoney, Will Connors, CJ Stander, Jack Conan was there. There's so many guys that could be there, and we're constantly talking about the competition in the back row. Josh Vanderfleer, another one. It's so competitive, and he really did make a mark on the campaign. There's so many guys too that have to come in for the Guinness Six Nations. Like Tyke Furlong's been injured. Larmour might be back from his injury. There's so many other guys that will be fighting for a position come January when they're back in camp again.
Yeah, certainly. Like, just on your points about Jacob, I couldn't agree with you any more. He's definitely grown into it in the last few games. It was definitely a tough day for him against France, and he'd be the first to say that himself. But I think as well, we've got to look back and see what's come before him. And Rob set incredibly high standards there. He was rock solid at the back, probably the best in the world under the high ball. Jacob's come in now, and he's aspiring to be as good as Rob was in the air and covering the backfield, but he'll definitely offer more in other areas, and we've got to be appreciative of that. If he drops the odd high ball, maybe what he's offering us with his carry game, people will start to see the positives that gives to the team. And I thought that was a huge part of what he did against Scotland at the weekend. His ability to find soft shoulders, keep pumping his legs, create fast ball and create soft edges for the team. I thought was huge for when it started to click for Ireland, and he'll certainly be a big part of what we'll be doing over the next few weeks in Ulster and leading on to the Six Nations for Ireland.
Absolutely. And I suppose chatting about the Guinness Six Nations, if they get that first win against Wales, that'll be a great start. And it's all about momentum when it comes to games like these.
Yeah, certainly. Wales haven't been hitting their stripes over the last few weeks. Even the Italian game at the weekend, it was very close contest up to about 60 minutes, and then ultimately the Welsh pulled away in the last 20. But for a period of time, it looked like the Italians might actually get on top of them and get a win. They're definitely a side in transition. It hasn't clicked yet with the new coach, so it'll be interesting to see what the next few months brings there. How much they get to bring everyone together in camp. Even whether there's supporters or not is a big part of what's going to happen in the Millennium Stadium. Wales with a full Millennium Stadium is a very different proposition to playing them without any supporters there. But no, look, I think it's important for Ireland that we don't look past that first game. Obviously, you win that, it tees up everything from a Triple Crown to a Grand Slam. If you lose that, you're very much behind the eight ball, and then you're going into play. I think it's France in the second game. So, look, they'll be under no illusions, but that will be a tough challenge.
And I'm sure we will chat about the Guinness Six Nations a lot more between now and then. There's quite a lot of rugby to be played between now and then. So we'll be back with Schalk Burger in part 2.
House of Rugby Ireland, here on Joe, together with Guinness. Game changed.
We had Victor Matfield and John de Villiers on the show earlier on this year, and we are delighted to welcome another Springbok legend in Schalk Burger. Former World Player of the Year, Lions series winner, and also World Cup winner. So Schalk, do you ever get sick of an accolade like that?
No, I don't think you do. Obviously, once you retire, you become so much better. So, I've only recently retired, just over a year now. So I'm not as good as some of my counterparts that's been on here. But there's a good South African contingent, and I guess they got the same warm welcome that I got. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. You're showing us some beautiful views there over in a very sunny South Africa. A lot different to the weather we have here in Ireland today.
No, I'm not envious of you guys whatsoever, but it's beautiful down here. Another tough day in Africa. This is the southern of my left shoulder here. This is that's Newlands Ravine you're looking at. So it's the southern suburb side of Table Mountain. So you guess where I'm at. I'm close to Newlands Rugby Stadium. That's where I live. So awesome this side. And I saw some photos of what you guys were playing rugby in today. So I'd rather be. I'm here in my board shorts and my short hat on, been in the swimming pool, been on the beach this morning. So sorry to spoil your weather for you, but it's been awesome, yeah. And we're ready for summer holidays, so can't wait.
Sounds good. Schalk, what have you been up to since you retired from rugby? Obviously taking in the good weather at the moment. What kind of have you stayed in touch with the rugby world, or have you taken a break completely and stepped back from it?
Yeah, I've actually was planning on having a year sabbatical. So finished June last year at Saracens. Obviously, our season ended up with massive success and came back to South Africa. First thing I had is because I came back with 2 South African boys that was completely, English. They were Poms. So the first thing I did is took them through Africa, let them catch their first fish. Let them pull a shot off on a rifle, trying to de-palm them and get them more South African before they go to school. So I did a full trip through Namibia, about 3-4 weeks, about 6,500 kilometers. Got back, settled in our house that was rented out for 5 years since we were gallivanting around. And then I got an unexpected call to do some punditry for SuperSport. So they got me on board, and obviously it was quite nice to be a part of, the punditry team to do the World Cup where South Africa won. It was much easier relaying a message to South Africa when the Springboks win the World Cup to when it is they lose in a final. And I've carried on with that. And I've joined one of my very good friends in the property business. So he's sort of taken me under the wing. Had a lot to learn this year. This year wasn't easy for business as a whole, especially in the property business. And then me and John de Villiers started a little TV show called Use It or Lose It. We've got about 25 followers at present. I think it is maybe 26. So please follow us if you do. Yeah, we'd like to get up to 30 before the end of the year.
So if any of our listeners want to give them a follow, they might get up to 30 by the end of today's podcast. You started off, I suppose, your father, Schalk Burger, also, I suppose you had that pressure of growing up with that name. Did you ever find it hard to live up to the reputation that he had, or the path that he had paved for you?
Yeah, so obviously my old man played a long time at Western Province, also had a stint in Eastern Province and then back to Western Province, but also played for the Boks. So whenever that happens in South Africa, rugby mad country, there's a certain amount of pressure, but I think I was the right personality for it. I was sort of always daydreaming as a kid, like in my own little bubble, so to speak. So when it came down to playing rugby, it sort of just pitched up and did it. My first love actually at school was cricket, so I finished with a cricket contract. So I was talented at both as rugby as a cricketer, but like cricket accolades just came a bit faster when I was younger. It was only in my second year where I swapped to rugby, so swapped to pro rugby, and then that was quite an exciting time for me. But yeah, I guess one thing it does help you is to prepare for certain big moments. Having a dad that's already been there, so especially in the beginning of my career, it was quite nice to have him as a sounding board. And then later on, you sort of just follow your own head and make a few mistakes along the way. But it's awesome in South Africa. We had quite a few players like Ruan Pienaar, for example. You guys would know him well. His dad, Kolisi Pienaar, played with my dad in the mid-80s, early to mid-80s. We had John de Villiers, old man. He played lock actually for Western Province with my dad in the beginning of my dad's career. So there's quite a few second-generation rugby players coming through in South Africa. So it must have something to do with it.
Did you ever feel pressured to choose rugby, or did it happen naturally? I know you said obviously cricket and rugby were your two sports, but was there ever a pressure? Because obviously, you're almost expected to play rugby if your father is, has a name like he has.
I reckon if I came out like 5'4", really fast, no one probably would have said he's got to be a rugby player. But because you come out 6'4" and you weigh 110 kilograms, everyone's going to go, he's a rugby player.
Yeah.
So it sort of adds to the hype. And then obviously I loved rugby, just as much as cricket. So always played a certain style. Just wanted to touch the ball, wanted to get stuck in. So once you start throwing yourself around in South Africa, everyone's going like, oh, he's going to play rugby big time. But then it's so hard to make in South Africa. We've got so much talent, so much talent. And I think especially now where so many players are based overseas. I just saw the Scotland score sheet, and it was Duan van der Merwe scoring a try and Jaco van der Walt kicking all the conversions. But that doesn't sound Scottish, does it? So, there's all South Africans playing all abroad, and I think we just showcases how much talent we've got. So even when I started out, made the swap from cricket to rugby, you never once, firstly think actually you're good enough. And secondly, there's so many good players in and around your age group, let alone the senior players involved, that you're actually going to get a chance. And then luckily for me, I got, a few lucky breaks, through players being injured. And then all of a sudden you get a chance. And, before you knew it, you played 20, 30, 40 test matches. And the players that was probably better than you at an age grade level just, lacked on experience, and you had a head start. And for that, obviously some of it's got to do with me, because, you can't just get a test cap for the Boks and sort of think you're going to get another one. You never incumbent, you never own the jersey. You're just a custodian of a jersey that's going to live long after you finish. So once I got my foot in, I wanted to play more, and then all of a sudden through experience you just become so much better than your peers at the time.
When you talk about like showcasing South African talent, there's been a fair bit of talk and excitement about some of the super sides joining the Guinness Pro 12. Has there been much talk or excitement about it in South Africa?
I think it's twofold. So first of all, I think when we speak about Super Rugby and when we reminisce about Super Rugby, we reminisce about the old Super Rugby where everyone tuned in. The Super 12, the one we started playing in when I was younger. The best competition in the world, run for 3 months, best players in the world on showcase. Started in February and ended, in May. Of late, Super Rugby, I think, sort of lost its way. We expanded to 18 teams, Super 18. We also, started running over 8 months. We cut it down to Super 15. And I think, the catalyst of all of this was obviously COVID, where we had to cancel the tournament through obviously the tough travel schedules. But I think over the years, what's happened down, it's become a bit of a watered down tournament through South African sides, obviously having so many players playing abroad. The Kiwi sides are very strong. We all know Australia's got some rugby struggles, especially in their franchise rugby. Yeah. Argentina has done reasonably well, and the Japan side that could never really access their best players. So I think they lost the fan, they lost the crowd. The guys found it too complicated to follow, too much travel in between, too much time off. If you in Sydney, for example, and they all share the same stadium, the SFS Sydney Football Stadium, and if you can watch a rugby league team there for 8 months in a row, pretty much every other weekend, Waratahs can play the 1 week, and then 2 months later they can play there again. So it's quite hard to follow as a fan, because we all, we're creatures of habit. You want to go to your stadium, you want to watch it. So I think South Africa is ready for a change, and it's coming to the north, and I think it's going to be massively exciting. It's going to be a new challenge. Obviously, we play a certain style, so for all of you guys, it will exposure to how we as South Africans play. And also for us as South Africans, I think we're quite excited about breaking the mold, breaking the stigma about Super Rugby or Super Touch, as it's often referred to, and actually playing in your conditions. Obviously, I think our strengths as South Africans are in our athletes and our physical, we can be, our set piece, all things we pride ourselves on. And I think it's going to be exciting to see us move to the north and see how we adapt, because it's going to be an adaptation for our players to travel across, play different times of the year. Same for you guys coming to, some warm places, especially in summer. Durban, Cape Town's all right. We by the ocean, we get this cooling breeze at night. Pretoria is a hard place to play. The old Gauteng, the Lions, super hard place to play. So I think whenever there's a change, there comes excitement with it. It's just, how do we actually do this? How do we get it right? And how do we build excitement? Because us as South Africans are ready for the move.
Yeah, really exciting our end. And I think if you look at how the league has gone in the last 8 weeks, the Irish sides have dominated it. Now, I know some of the other teams have missed their internationals, and that's hurt them hard. But going forward, having the 4 super sides in from South Africa, I think would make the competition far more competitive. Obviously, you've played in both the Premiership and you've played in Super Rugby. How do you think the super teams would fare if they're in the Premiership, or comparing to the product that you played in the UK?
I think the Premier, I played it in 2 different phases of my career. So one I played obviously when I was younger, and then older in the Premiership. But I think they actually quite similar in certain ways, where they're so competitive. So Super 12 for me was the most competitive competition in the world. By that I mean from bottom to top, there was not much in the teams. Whether you finish 6th on the log, 1st or 12th, it's so tight. And I think the Premiership had that same feeling, where all the teams are so competitive. Yes, maybe towards the end of the season, when one team sort of had a few injuries and they sort of resigned to the fact that they might be relegated, yes, then you can roll them over. But certainly not the case for the first 8 months of the year. It's so competitive. And I think South African teams will bring that depth to pro rugby. I don't think there's often going to be a case where they're going to roll over. So it is hard. It's going to be hard for us to go there and put 4 good teams, because we have got a massive group of players every year leaving to play in the north or playing in Japan. I think from the World Cup squad that won it, 33, if you take Trevor Nakani and Jesse Kriel was injured, already 18 of them is based abroad. So only the rest is stuck here. So we do lose a lot of players, and I think this will increase with the exposure they will get in the north. But still, I think we've got so much talent on display here, and we produce so much talent year on year, that I think they'll be very, very competitive, and that's always good for a competition.
I think so. I think the Guinness Pro 14 has been in the last few weeks slightly, I think people have lost a little bit of interest in it, because, the Irish teams are dominating it so much, and the Autumn Nations Cup has, I suppose, been the reason that that's been the case. The Italy teams, the Italian teams have really been, finding it really difficult, and especially the Scottish teams as well, with their internationals away. So I think it will add a bit of interest and a bit of, it's unexpected, and we don't know what the South Africans will bring, but we do know that they will bring a different style of rugby and a different style of physicality that I think spectators will be really excited to see.
But I guess it's competition, right? So whenever there's good competition, everyone tunes in to watch it. If you look Formula One at the moment, like you've got Mercedes dominating it, it sort of gets stale after a while. And I think Super Rugby went the same way with, all the All Black sides dominating, New Zealand teams dominating it for so long. We need to, as South Africans, get across there and actually make a big impact. The Irish sides are so strong, well managed, a lot of depth, a lot of international players, big squads. We've got smaller squads, but we'll get across there and be itching to sink our teeth into this new competition. So, hopefully for us, we can come across there and have at least 2 of the 4 teams super competitive in the first year, and then hopefully build on our depth to get 4 competitive sides. Because that was always our issue in Super Rugby. We always had 1 or 2 teams that was up there for long periods of time. And then in between that, we had some teams battling to actually be competitive at Super Rugby, especially towards the end of it.
So I can see that the Bulls are going really well in the Currie Cup. They'll obviously be one of the 2 stronger sides that you were talking about. Who else do you think can really, really compete in the Guinness Pro 14?
Well, I think the Bulls will be the strongest suit. They've got Jake White in there. They've got a nice blend of between a lot of new youngsters playing really exciting, nice rugby, but then they've also got like Morne Steyn sort of marshalling the troops, Dwayne Vermeulen. And I just think, they're on the right path. They've got a lot of talent there. It's a strong, traditional stronghold of South African rugby up there in Pretoria. I think it will really suit the style they play. They play reasonably conservative, solid set piece, but then also they've got an ability to crack the game open through, transition, turnovers. So they've been by far the best team, look the most professional outfit at the moment. Then there's a lot of talent down in Cape Town where I'm from. Unfortunately, we've had some boardroom issues here down there, Western Province. We're moving away from Newlands. We're moving to a new stadium. Cape Town Stadium was a phenomenal venue, by the way. Everyone will thoroughly enjoy going there, but they've got some issues behind closed doors. Lions, I think not so much. So I'm going to go Sharks has got a lot of talent, and I think they'll be hard to beat in Durban, not abroad. So Bulls, Stormers will be my favourite pick to really make it tough for you guys. Also, the Stormers has got one of the best packs of forwards for any club side. So if they can keep them together, they'll be competitive. But Bulls, far and away the best side we've got.
So Scott, that links in really well to our Guinness House of Rugby Hall of Fame section. And this week we asked our followers on Twitter if they had any good questions for you. And Pat Kern asked if Schalk was in favour of the South African Super Rugby franchises joining the Guinness Pro 14 and how he thinks they get on. So you've almost answered that, but if you were to sum that up again, just for Pat Kern, who's newly welcomed into the Guinness House of Rugby Hall of Fame, give us a short answer on how you think they'll go.
Yeah, Pat, I'm definitely, you've answered already, but I'm in favour of it. I think there's a good change for us as South Africans to go up north, one travel, one timeline. We can all watch all the games. We don't have to wake up early mornings to watch, the Stormers play in Dunedin, which is 11-hour time difference. So we're all in favour, and we're also ready for a change. It's time for us to go up north and see if we can be competitive. Maybe for us is a big reality check. I think we will be competitive. I don't think we'll get success immediately, because if you think of our Super Rugby careers, us as South African took a while before we started getting success. So I think it'll be hard for us, especially the weather change from South Africa, where it's quite easy, especially tactically and also technically. Our players will have to improve to be competitive in worse conditions, like in the UK, especially this time of the year. So I think it will take us a while, but I think we're going to have at least 2 very competitive sides every year.
I think Ian is also delighted too that he'll get a few trips to South Africa in the coming years.
Absolutely. I wouldn't mind getting out there now.
If all the boys are dropping, I mean, please just don't, when you go to any zoo, just don't put your hand into the lion cage. I mean, it's not a cage. That's how you get yourself into trouble.
You should be almost telling him to do it to hurt the opposition teams.
I wouldn't mind going over to South Africa and just camping up, end the season tour there, roll into the summer. There'd be nothing better.
Yeah, if you just schedule it so that you have a South African team for the last game of season, so that you can just stay on. Be very nice.
Exactly.
Very nice.
We get over now for a winter break. Yeah.
Schalk,
Get a couple of weeks off and come full in here. We'll welcome you.
Schalk, you won World Rugby Player of the Year at just 21 years of age. Were you just a year into your season with the Springboks? That must have been amazing to start your career off in such a manner.
And if you think back now, it's a little bit crazy. At the time, these things sort of just happened. I made my debut in 2003 at the 2003 Rugby World Cup, and I remember I was nominated to be one of the under 21 rugby players of the year. And Benatinga won at the same age as me, but he also went to 2003 Rugby World Cup, and we were actually sitting at the same table. And obviously Johnny Wilkinson won it, and both of us were sitting there having a few beers, think, "Oof, it'll be cool to win this one day." And I mean, 12 months later, there was I, picking it up. So crazy. I mean, we didn't have a good 2003. Me and eye-gouging was two of the youngsters sort of made it through. We had that horrible camp before the World Cup. We weren't playing well. We had no chance in winning the World Cup. And then Jake White came in, and we had a lot of success with him at junior levels. We won in 2002. We won the Junior World Cup, and he took a lot of guys from the 98 group, John Smith, and that was sort of the basis of the team. It was 98 and 2002, and then brought back some older men, brought back Osturant and Percy Montgomery from abroad, or also off the farm actually, and Percy from abroad. And then he told me I'm going to start. I'm starting open side early on in the year. Said, listen, you get yourself playing well, and you're going to start. And we started playing against Ireland. Actually, it was my first start up in Bloemfontein. We got a nice win there, and then came down to Cape Town. And I was obviously so pumped for the game. Playing at my home stadium. I grew up on the stadium watching my dad do captain's run here. Now I'm starting a test match for the Boks against Ireland. And you're never going to play poorly. 50,000 people down in Cape Town, and got a man of the match performance, and that sort of set the tone for the rest of the year. And when you're that young and you're playing well, it feels like you can't do no wrong. You just carry on playing. We got a little bit carried away, as I often did in my career, and got a few yellow cards towards the end of the season. One against Ireland was harsh, though. It was very harsh at the Old Lansdowne Road. I got another one for putting a high shot on Colin Jarvis, which also hard. I mean, just his hair, it was going everywhere. But besides that, it was a cracking year. And then obviously, to tap it off with all the accolades, that was a little bit overwhelming at that age, at 21. But what it does do, though, is just frees you up to go and play some more rugby. And that's the way I always saw it. I've always just wanted to enjoy the game. That was my main focus. So I always think I had a nice perspective, but definitely achieving a lot when you're young, it does free you up and does relax you a bit just to have a crack.
It sounds like the perfect start almost to your career, and I'm glad that Ireland has some good memories as well, that your first cap and that man of the match performance. Not that we're too happy about that, but it's a nice start for you anyway. However, not long after that, very early on into your career, you got a really bad injury. Did you think it would be career threatening, or was it as bad as you expected? What was injured, and how long did the initial rehab take?
Yeah, so it was 2006 against Scotland. So we played the first test match up in Durban, and then went down to Port Elizabeth to play the second test match. I can remember it was like me and John Smith trying to tackle some bloke. I don't know, at that stage, just flying around. So I wanted to smash someone. And before I got to him, John got to him. So instead of me tackling with my shoulder, I actually hit him with the head. And as the motorbike flies by, actually tackled him with my head. And, what transpired after that is, like, I finished the game, went to the pub, usual practice back then, got back 1 o'clock and just started feeling horrendous, neck pain, can't move, sort of stuck in this position. Went to the doctor's room. Next morning, scanned in Port Elizabeth, and then flew down to Cape Town. And when I got to Cape Town, they obviously had the results of the scan. And I basically, with that impact, burst the disc, so I had a prolapse of the disc. And that was sort of scary back then. No one really had neck fusions. It wasn't a done thing. Obviously, with neck fusions, there can be complications. My biggest issue was, like, because there was so much fluid pushing down on the nerve, I sort of lost all strength on my left arm. And to this day, I've got no feeling in these two fingers, although I've got strength. They're completely numb. And that's the first time where you sort of get a reality check where you think, okay, hold on, I'm not invincible. I've been flying around for 4 years now. And at that stage, the bigger risk you take, the more accolades you get, the better is the outcome. And that's the first time where you sort of think, okay, hold on, I'm mortal, I'm human, I'm just another bloke trying to play rugby. And I think, you're young and you crack on. And luckily for me, in the first game I came back, was actually a warm-up game against the Bulls. So I was out for, 7 months. Came back, I know like the turnaround times now is crazy fast. I think they can play in 4 months, but back then we were quite conservative. And the first guy I had to tackle was Dani Rousseau, big old Dani Rousseau. And he ran at me. I put a shot on him and I didn't feel anything. I was like, okay, I'm all right. I can crack on with this, because if you can tackle Dani Rousseau, you pretty much can tackle anything. You can tackle a bus. And then you started playing, but then I also realized that you've got to improve your game in other areas. You've got to evolve, because if I'm going to be flying around like this, I'm not going to have longevity out the game. So then we started working on a few other things, a few line-out skills, a few kick-off skills, a few different things, just to try and evolve your game. And it took a long time to actually improve it, but we got there in the end.
What elements of your game did you work on specifically to try and improve?
So, like back then in South Africa, we were very one-dimensional, especially. And I always tried to, I always believed, in passing forwards. You watch the Kiwi sides, and they were, when we were younger, they also had a lot of width through their structure they played. And they had long passes and big backs. That was pretty much the difference between them and anyone else. But obviously, we as South Africans were quite physical and imposing, so we could match up to their physicality. And then they had to find another point of difference, and that came through their structure in close quarter through passing forwards. Like watching this autumn Nations Cup now, there's lovely touches by forwards, and it's all through the structure that was created. So I just started working on passing, tip-ons, out the backs. It just took a while for a structure to fall in place, and that structure came when Eddie Jones joined us in 2007 as attacking consultant. So all of a sudden we had a little structure in and around, and by that stage, I had a bit of a head start on the rest of the boys because, I played cricket, so I did have a decent skill set. But now all of a sudden there was a structure where I could sort of express, little short passes, little stuff out the back. So once that came, then all of a sudden it looked like my game sort of changed overnight. It didn't. There was just a structure in place. But I really enjoyed the finer stuff of it, like kickoffs, for example. Even when I joined Saracens, we started a little kickoff challenge, and I absolutely loved taking kickoffs. All those little things I hated was cleaning rucks and practicing how to tackle and scrum.
You're not the only one who hates cleaning rucks.
All that is guts. It's like chuck your heart on the table, check how hard you are. But the finer stuff I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed trading that. But don't ask me to clean a ruck. I cleaned enough.
You're talking to two backs here who completely agree with you, so that's fine.
I know. You guys, I wish I was a bit nimbler. In my second life, I'm going to come back in a smaller, nimbler, a little bit of a faster frame and wear a big digit on the back. But unfortunately, that wasn't for me to have.
It wasn't. So after working on yourself and I suppose working on those, not weaknesses, but you changed your game, I suppose, based on that injury and to better your performances. And you got picked for that 2004, the next World Cup. But you ended up getting a 4-match ban, which was then reduced down to 2-match ban. So that's not an ideal start after coming back from injury.
So 07, it's probably a trend through my career. I sort of overstepped the boundary a few times. But in 07, we had a good build-up. And, it was one of those things where we truly believed that we could obviously win a World Cup, although winning a World Cup's a lot harder than I think anyone can describe. Otherwise, New Zealand would probably have won it 5 times by now, and they've only won it 3 times. It's a tough thing to do, and you need a lot of stuff going away. And for sure, we had a lot of luck, but we also, I guess, was the form team at that World Cup. We played some phenomenal rugby, and I think case in point was our pool game against England. The 36-0 game where we just put on perfect rugby performance the way we wanted to play. South Africans needed to play, and that's important for us, because we are unique in that space. We play a little bit differently. But we played against Samoa, and I can just remember the game being so fiery, so worked up. And I guess 5 minutes into the game, and Butchie James was fly off, and he doesn't shirk away from any contact. But we were lining up quite wide on defense. We had this little up and in thing we're doing, quite a lot of line speed. And opposite me was Henry Tuolagi. Now, if I tell you this bloke was wider than he was tall. He was probably twice as wide as he was tall, weighing probably 145 kgs. And he was like the line-up trigger. So it was on the halfway, and he was lined up on the 22. And when he started chugging, the line-up ball came. So Butchie was basically lined up 15 meters wide, and he was, there's no ways I'm tackling this. There's no way, Scott. It's all yours. Let's leave him the gap, and then maybe you can tackle from the side. But anyway, he just basically saw the gap, turned to me, and then just ranged straight at me. And I sort of got him all right. But then poor Dani Rousseau was on the inside, and we absolutely steamrolled. And it was like watching like one of those, primary school games where the one kid's so much bigger, and the other one's got massive attitude, but he's on his back, and then he's poking his legs in between his legs to try and trip him over. That's exactly what it was. So obviously after that, the game got a bit fired up, and I got a bit carried away because I never really shirked away from the physical stuff. And then, got a tackle or a challenge, or like it's so clumsy. If you look back now, you think, what were you doing? But like it was all just because I was fired up, and got banned for 4 games initially, which was a disaster because that was pretty much a World Cup. And then luckily got reduced to 2 games, and then which actually worked out all right for me. So, a bit of luck, but also I think whenever you make these mistakes, there's no regrets. You can't take them back, can you? But you definitely learn from them. You have to learn from them. And, there's been a few of those learnings in my career. So I'm sure you'll get to a few others as this interview continues.
Do you care to elaborate on that?
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously 09 comes next, doesn't it? So 07, 09, the Lions. I mean, what an experience for all of us. We all remember watching 1997. I think all of us can remember, Gibbs bouncing Oost-Durant. I think it was in Durban. The Boks losing. 12 years later, we get an opportunity. It's more rare to play against the Lions for us than it is to play in a World Cup. It's one of those moments that's there. So, obviously, 09 came across. Jake White finished in 07, 08. We had mixed success with Peter de Villiers. In 09, I think we got a lot of things right before the season started. A lot of things where a new coach comes on board. He's got his ideas. He wants to change a stigma or way you play. But I think in 07, we got a lot right for South Africans. And then 09, I think we were back on that sort of trend. I missed the first test match. I was injured, actually. Got injured in Super Rugby, missed the first one. Stranded on 49 test matches. All I want to do is play my 50th test match. Second, obviously, first test match. Boks, dominated the first 60 minutes of the game, and then the Lions had a very good last 20. We knew the second test match was going to be hard. Main focus, obviously, was just sort of more of the same for us, So we obviously set pieces dominated you guys. Obviously, physicality is a non-negotiable. So would be the Lions team talk. It's all about physicality, and sort of 50th test match, a lot happening. Families up there. Just one of those moments where if you look back now, eye gouge 10 seconds into, not even 5 seconds into the game, Luke Fitzgerald, what was he doing in the ruck, by the way? I'm just joking.
He loves the ruck. He loves the ruck, for that matter.
In all seriousness, I mean, stupid. You get things wrong. And again, if you look back now, it's, overhyped. Moment probably got a little bit too big. Because never in your life are you going to enter a game and think, shit, I'm going to, eye gouge someone. You just overstep the mark through too much build-up. You want to make too big of an impact too soon. These things happen. So, obviously, I hope that doesn't detract from the fact that it was one of the best test matches ever. That second test match delivered in spades and obviously culminated in Morné Steyn slotting a 60-meter penalty to win the test match in a test series for South Africa. But a little bit bittersweet for me. I spent about the following week just getting slated everywhere, and then got a little 2-month sabbatical, so I was banned for 2 months. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, you get it wrong. There was no intention before the game. It's just, you learn from those things. And I think after that, you sit back and think, okay, hold on. Where are we going? What is the focus? Where should you move on? And I think whenever you lose big games or you make mistakes like I did there, you come back a better player from that.
Yeah, certainly, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I don't think any player goes into a game, with the intention of eye gouging someone or hurting an opponent. Like, because ultimately, like, what's your end goal? Like, even it actually happened again in the Scotland Ireland game yesterday. One of the Scottish players accused one of the Irish players of gouging, and I was just
Yeah.
delighted to see that nothing came of it, because it's very damaging, to your career if you get accused of something like that, and it's just something that kind of goes against the culture of the game. But you know, I think when you're fighting for every inch, you can get caught up in a moment, and it can look one way, but I think the intention behind it is very different. On a lighter note, Skulk, all the Lions lads talk of that tour so highly, and they said it was kind of the last of the real rugby tours. The social media wasn't too big at the time. For you, on the other side, how enjoyable was it in your own home country?
Oh, it's so special. It's so special. I think it's also one of the best supported just from, demographically where we sit. So we obviously fast forward to next year where it's Lions again coming 2021. Yes, there's a bit of a cloud hanging over whether it's going to continue or not. We all hope it is. If at worst it gets postponed for a little bit. But like we as South Africans can't wait. And you travel. What we love about it as South Africans, we're a rugby mad country. Everyone watches rugby here. We grow up with a rugby ball. The first present you get from your dad, I guess, is a rugby ball. And what we can't wait for is the Lions to come here. And it's the only long tour that exists in rugby. And South Africans, rugby is a community-based sport. It's a club sport. Everyone does it on weekends, whether you're not playing for the Stormers or not. You're still going to your local club. The whole family goes and everyone plays rugby. Everyone runs around on pitches. Afterwards, beforehand, afterwards is beers. And that's what's the nice thing about the Lions tour. People get to interact with the team. They identify with the Lions coming here. And then on top of that, their local team, their local club side gets to play against the Lions, which they will talk about forever and ever. And everyone's going to remember that one big tackle he put in or the try he scored against the Lions. I mean, that's the biggest happening that can happen in anyone's life here. I mean, they only come here every 12 years. So I guess the Lions is example, I think, for World Rugby and what a long tour could be for everyone, really. If we change the structure from these little week in, week out tours like we do down here in the Southern Hemisphere to a proper old tour where you get the whole rugby community to buy in, I mean, it's the best thing. So, South African tour, I think, is right up there just because we are so passionate about it. It's such a big sport. It's a big country. We've got a lot to see. Even from the Kruger down to the winelands here in Cape Town, it's so diverse between Afrikaans, English. We've got 11 official languages. I think it's one of the best tours to make with. And let's hope that, by that stage, the world's a little bit easier to get around in. And we've got a little bit of less regulations to comply with. Because the Lions tour in South Africa will be awesome. And whenever South Africa, get one of these big tournaments, if you think of 2010 Soccer World Cup and before that, 95 Rugby World Cup or 96 Africa Cup of Nations, the whole country rallies around it and they really, really enjoy it and they put on the best foot forward and they really entertain their host with absolute warmth.
The South African supporters, they're very similar to the Irish in that sense. They're brilliant for getting behind their team, and they're very welcoming people. I've been lucky enough to tour South Africa and be. I was on a family holiday there, and I loved my time there. Found the people so warm, and as you said, there's so much to see there. So yeah, please God that the tour does go ahead, and I think it will be, the highlight of 2021.
Yeah, I think we all echo your thoughts, and I think the big thing here is everyone's fans. Everyone loves the game so much. So, that really separates it, from other countries. We not often do you travel to a country where rugby is such a big thing. It's normally a little bit behind other sports. Where South Africa is one of those countries where it's really the premium sport. Although the national sport's still soccer, it's a premium sport here in South Africa.
I'm just going to echo what Ian just said there in relation to it's the fans. And the great thing about the South African tour is that the time difference is so easily available and readily available to, I suppose, the entire world, and especially for obviously the British and Irish Lions. The time difference makes that tour easily watchable for everyone around the country and around the UK, which adds to that excitement too, and that there's a lot more hype around it. And is that excitement building already in South Africa about the tour?
I mean, we doing like a few, normal or corporate gigs here. The only thing they can talk about is the Lions. The Lions is the biggest thing happening in South Africa over the next 12 months. That, and don't forget, the exchange rate. It's very, very cheap for you guys to go down there and have beer and have wine and have food and have steaks. And then obviously we've got the climate. The climate is also special. But South Africans are absolutely thriving. Just remember, we haven't seen the Springboks play. The last time we would have seen the Springboks play in South Africa was our last test match we played here was against, I think it was Australia, maybe, what was that, June 2019. No international rugby this year. Yes, we're getting some domestic rugby without crowds. So that is, as you know, it's not the same. It's a little bit different. Everyone's sitting in their lounges watching the Bulls and Stormers play like they did 2 weekends ago. It's not the same. It's not an outing. It's not that camaraderie, not that feeling, not the smell of going to Newlands watching a test match. So the Lions is massive for South Africans. They're craving to have live sport. They're craving to have the Lions, the best, biggest tour in rugby, to come to South Africa and stay here for 6 weeks and play against everyone. And then on top of that, you get your 3 test matches. So they can't wait.
In the year after winning the World Cup, that the national team hasn't been able to play. I was talking to Marcel Coetzee in the club about it, and every game that South Africa would have played after the World Cup would have been a huge game, because no matter who they're playing is looking to knock the number 1 team off their pedestal. I think everyone wants to see that national team back playing as soon as possible.
It's been so weird, hasn't it? Yeah. So, obviously they've gone through their training camps to try and get across to be part of, Test Match Championship. And then, it didn't come through. So, we were, all of us are bitterly disappointed not to see the Boks. Because also with that in South Africa goes a lot of, positive reinforcement. People forget quickly. We live in a country where, we've got some struggles. We're not isolated in that. And then COVID happens on top of that, which makes it even harder. And then if there's one, place where people can really relax and actually, wear the heart on their sleeves and be proudly South African, is when they watch the Springboks play. So unfortunately, we haven't had that opportunity this year, but, next year's coming and maybe the Lions will happen. And then I think, every South African will be supporting.
Will there be pressure on the Springboks to perform, and not having had a test game, an international test game in a year, will they be ready for the challenge that awaits them?
Yeah, there's always pressure on the Boks. I think we've got challenges in between World Cups, and that's why we battle to be so consistent, because we've got so many players based everywhere. We've got a new head, we've got new coaching staff. Also, we've got a new head of strength and conditioning. And I caught up with him. He's in Cape Town. I caught up with him briefly, and he said, I can't believe where everyone's at. They Japan, the Ireland, they Scotland, they in the UK. So it is a challenge for us, because you just don't have access to your best players except in a World Cup year. But for next year, all the players will pull in for extended period of time and really fire out for the Lions. Everyone's waiting for that. You've got a few older players. You've got Francois Steyn, for example. He's hanging on for that. I think he's imperative to the balance of the bench. You've got Dwayne Vermeulen. All these guys are coming back to South Africa. There's talk about Marcel maybe coming back for next year, although I haven't heard anything.
You played with Kolisi. Tell us a little bit about that and your experience playing with him.
I'm sure you guys have seen it around, but when Sia was 14, I think I was playing for the Boks. So that same week where I got injured, I was telling you guys earlier about when I had the neck problem. And their photo, surfaced when we started playing together. So he joined the Stormers in 2010. So he was obviously a youngster. 2011, he was a youngster. I was a little bit older at the time. And then this photo surfaced of me actually giving Sia, a signature in 2006. At grade PE where he went to school. So I've known Sia for ages, and when he was younger, more formative stuff. Saying, listen, Sia, let's try and get you a better rugby player. Let's try and make you a better human being. Let's try this. There was no doubt that he was always going to make it. He's super talented. He's super talented. He's gifted. Also, one of the nicest blokes around. He's a really, really nice guy, grounded guy. Understands where he comes from. I guess, a lot of light's been, sort of shone on his background. You watch, 2007, final in a pub, or Shabeen. But I think, what he's meant for South Africa is imperative. But I think what South Africa needs from him going forward is playing well and playing good rugby. And I think, he's a charismatic leader, which is important in South Africa. We've had statesmen in South Africa, Nelson Mandela. No one forget, how impressive he was for our country and what he meant to us. And Sia, I think, is on similar trend. He means a lot to South Africa. He unites the country, and the Springboks unites South Africa. So I guess we need him to play some proper rugby. We need the Springboks to play good rugby. But yeah, I know him very well, him and his wife, lovely people. We have each other over often for drinks down in Cape Town. Yeah, it's a small little community down here. So it's lovely to know him. It's lovely to see him doing so well. It's been an absolute pleasure to watch.
Absolutely. Well, Schalk, I think it's time for our House of Rugby challenge. So earlier on, we gave you a heads up about 3 items we wanted you to talk to us about. So we asked you to get a piece of rugby memorabilia, a jersey that you have swapped and held on to, and something non-rugby that you treasure. So we'll start off with the first one, and a piece of rugby memorabilia.
Okay. I guess, we know where this is heading. You guys, can you read that?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Lovely.
So, yeah, final jersey from 2007.
We were all cheering you on that day.
Yeah, whenever you're in France for 8 weeks and they basically, you don't speak any word of English, and then you play against the English in the final and every Frenchman speaks English. That's what it was all about. Everyone wanted us to win that one. Obviously, super to be a part of it. Great memories, And then whenever you played the All Blacks and you've got a All Blacks jumper, I always treasured those ones because they never used to, back in the day, give them out just willy-nilly. They sort of gave it out to when there was your mutual respect, and you'll do the same as a Springbok. So greatest rivalry for us, at least, the Springboks, goes back many years. And then, of late, the All Blacks, obviously, they've had the word on us. But, luckily the Boks every now and then turn them around. And I was fortunate to do it quite a few times. But I've got a number. We always played a number 6 jumper. So I've got a couple here. This one's actually Jerry Collins.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, very nice. You won't see the engraving. It's right at the bottom. And then I've got another one. And it's same. It's just Jerome Kaino.
Excellent.
Very good.
So yeah, they're always special, especially late night when one or two of your mates have had too much. They normally come out in Jerry Collins or Jerome Kaino's All Black jumper, and they start making a few tackles on the mates on the couch here, just inside.
Did you have to take them down from the wall?
They don't hit as hard though. Yeah.
Did you have to take those jerseys down from the wall, or are they hidden away now for future?
No, they're hidden away at the moment, but everyone knows my cupboard so well. So, late night they just sort of open it, and then, we've got everyone. We've got some English jerseys, some Argentinians. I've got a friend from Chile that always loves to wear a few Argentinians jerseys. And then you think the guys who always thought they were hard, the hard men of the pub, they're normally either in my jumpers or, as I mentioned, Jerome Kaino or Jerry Collins' jumpers.
Absolutely. And what is your something non-rugby that you treasure?
I've got an old Defender, a 1997 Defender, a short wheelbase Defender. I absolutely love that thing. My wife hates it, and I bought it, probably about 11 or 12 years ago. And every year I do something so it's completely done up, and I love it. I drive it everywhere, and she's absolutely petrified of the thing.
We had Hugo Monye on a few weeks ago, and it seems to be a trend with our rugby memorabilia that we treasure. He said his wife didn't allow him have any rugby memorabilia in the house, so it seems to be a trend with the wives on the show here.
Yeah, I guess when we were together from the start, really, me and my missus. But when you go to rugby matches for what did it play 15 years, I guess it gets a bit tiresome after a while. So, whenever I've got to have rugby memorabilia on the house might be a little bit overkill. And on top of that, she's an interior designer, so I'm not sure rugby jersey fits into her spectrum.
It probably doesn't.
As we speak, I'm actually busy just building myself like a wooden shed outside where I'm just going to put all my rugby stuff up. And the only thing I really need there is just a proper keg,
You can start doing tours, and you can start charging then of your rugby memorabilia.
No, I'll have it up and running by the Lions tour, no doubt.
Get Guinness to send you out a keg.
Yeah, I know. I can't wait.
By the time Ian gets to go over to South Africa and play in the Guinness Pro 14, he can take a visit to his shed.
Well, he's more than welcome. I'll definitely give him a midweek luncheon that will follow into a dinner, and it'll be perfect prep for the Saturday against the Stormers.
I look forward to that.
Schalk, it has been a great pleasure having you on. It has been so interesting to talk to you about all that's going on in South Africa and your experience with the Springboks, and it really has been a pleasure to chat to you here today.
Eimear and Ian, thank you very much for having me. I know the sun's setting here. I was set outside, but all the best with your winter, and good luck with your rugby, and can't wait for next year. It seems to be a big year in rugby.
Cheers to everybody for watching and listening today. Don't forget you can continue to get involved in our Facebook group and on Twitter. A huge big thank you to everyone involved today. Producer Pat, Paul, Dermot, Ian, Anthony and everybody that helped getting this show together. This has been House of Rugby Ireland here on Joe together with Guinness. Slán go fóill.
Good night, we live.
Nailed it.
House of Rugby Ireland here on Joe together with Guinness. Game changed.